Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Steam Deck and some of the responses to my video. As you know, I don't like the Steam Deck. I think it's a terrible device. I do not recommend you purchase the Steam Deck. So now we're going to be taking a look at some reactions to my video on the Steam Deck Reddit. Let's have a look at some of the comments on this video. That's been me with videos comparing the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck, and the Legion Go, or an Ioneo variant. Okay. What are the three reasons? Low resolution screen, very difficult OS, and it's heavy. Yeah, I would also add a fourth reason, being the fact that you're kind of locked into Steam Store unless you have the knowledge to install the other stores, but it can be a bit tricky. Ideally, you only want to stay within the Steam Store. It's more convenient, and then if you don't stay within the Steam Store, you kind of lose a bit of the convenience of the device because you're having to not use it in a console where you're having to install other stuff, which kind of defeats the whole console appeal of it. Okay, let's see what this says. Anyone who knows died. 3 reasons. Clickbait title gets views. Clickbait title generates outraged machine, which generates views. Clickbait title gets guy with barely 111 subs mentioned on Reddit. This is pretty funny because, yeah, I was not expecting to get so many views on that video. It's kind of surprising. It wasn't really even clickbait. I was just giving my honest opinion about the Steam Deck. Heavy. So these are the 3 points he mentions: low resolution screen, very difficult OS, and it's heavy. Heavy, pick up the Legion Go. Lenovo Legion can kill a man without shulker. It's nice though. Yeah, I mean, other devices are heavier. That doesn't suddenly mean that the Steam Deck is a light device. You can obviously find devices that are heavier. You could compare Steam Deck to an elephant, and you could say it's really light. Look at the elephant, you could say it's really light. It's not really logical to make these comparisons and then claim that just because a heavier device exists, then that makes the Steam Deck a light device. Not really. And yeah, it wasn't just it's heavy. My point in the video was it's bulky, it's big, it's going to take up space. It's awkward to use on something like the train or the bus because it's a very wide device. So let's say you're in a quite crammed, packed train or a bus, then you're going to have to use up the space of the seat beside you because it's quite a wide device. You can't really hold your hands together. You have to kind of hold your hands quite far apart, and that means you're going to be intruding on the person next to you in the seat, and that makes it very awkward to use on the train or the bus. The OS is fire. I disagree. Linux is terrible. I went over why Linux is terrible, so it's not really fire, is it? Battery lasts forever. It doesn't last forever if you're playing anything recent. Playing Dave the Diver. Okay, so this is some random indie game, and it looks terrible. It's not a good game. It just looks rubbish. And obviously it's going to have a good battery when running a terrible indie zero demanding game. Obviously that's not even a point. Okay, it is kind of heavy, but not bad. Okay, rest in pepperoni. To be fair, not everyone likes Linux. I love how this guy gets downvoted just for saying the obvious truth. This is how the Steam community, the Steam Deck community is. They really don't like anyone criticizing anything about the device. Even a very obviously true statement. Not everyone likes Linux. That's a very obviously true statement, and yet he's getting downvoted for that. Absolutely, but unless you want to use third-party launchers or emulate games, you don't really have to deal with it all. And if you don't use third-party launchers, then you're stuck with the Steam Store, and quite a small fraction of the games of the full Steam library is actually fully compatible and verified. So obviously you're going to want to use third-party launchers. What if you want to play something like Fortnite? You can't do that. If you want to play Destiny, you can't do that. Halo Infinite, I don't think you can do that. What other third-party launchers? Rocket League. Okay, so Rocket League is a good example because that's on Epic Games. You would have to use the heroic launcher, right? You would have to install that on your Steam Deck. It's kind of tricky. Like most normal people who come from consoles, they're not going to know how to do this, and having to look up a tutorial online to do something, if you need to do that to use a device, then your device is bad. That should not be necessary. Valve should have something built in that automatically installs these third-party launchers. Like, you shouldn't have to do anything to do that. And obviously Valve is not going to facilitate that because they want you to stay within the Steam store. So that's why it's a bad device, because you are kind of locked in to Steam. And even then, okay, let's continue reading. And even then, it's not a headache unless you think following a 10-minute step-by-step YouTube tutorial is too much to ask. Well, this is the thing, it is too much to ask, because you should not have to go online and look up a tutorial to just play your games when you're buying the device to play your games, right? You want to play Rocket League, you want to play whatever other games there are, Genshin Impact. I don't know if Genshin Impact is on Steam, maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong about that one, but I know Rocket League is no longer on Steam. Palworld, I don't think that's on Steam, right? Oh yeah, Palworld is on Steam, yeah. You should be fine running Palworld. But there are some other games, like... I'm sure there are some other games like World of Warcraft. You do need to install Battle.net for that. I'm not really much of a gamer, like super playing all of the games, so I don't really know all of the games, but I would say World of Warcraft, you're going to need to install a third-party launcher to be able to actually play that game. Let's see this reply. I hate how Reddit hides replies when they have downvoted, like a downvoted score, because that kind of leads to an echo chamber environment. Okay, how install FiveM for GTA 5? So this is a good point. This is a great example, and he's being downvoted for basically telling the truth and saying something very obvious, that it's difficult to install mods for games like GTA 5, like FiveM. How do you even do that on a Steam Deck? I'm sure it's possible, but most normal people are not going to know how to do that. That's the whole point. Whilst I get that, Windows can be just as problematic, and if you can Google those problems and fix them, you could do the same with Linux. It's purely familiarity bias, and he's right to a degree. It is familiarity bias, but yeah, that's how the world is. Most people are more familiar with Windows, and that makes it more difficult to use Linux. That's just the truth of the matter, is more people are going to be familiar with Windows, and therefore the Steam Deck is more difficult to use for more people. Let's continue, and even then, I doubt that many of the less techie users do even much outside of game mode. I'm not sure what he means by this. I doubt many of the less techie users. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're techie or not. If they want to play games from other stores, they're going to have to go outside of the game mode. They're going to have to load up these other stores. That's the point. Whoops. What happened? And again, yeah, this guy, I like this guy. And how do you install workshop mods for Crash Day Redline? Exactly, he's got a great point. Like, how do you even install these mods? I have no idea. Probably quite hard to do. The LCD is a little heavy. I had to do a double take when I first picked up the limited edition OLED. Damned thing feels almost impossibly light. I think this is a massive exaggeration. You can tell when these Steam Deck people, when they talk about the device, they make these really obviously exaggerated claims, like impossibly light. They use these superlative terms to describe the device that obviously are not true. You know. Well, two of those make sense. Low resolution screen is a thing mentioned by people who have no clue what pixel density means. On a 7-inch screen, 1080p is a waste. I completely disagree with this guy. 1080p on a 7-inch screen is not a waste, because most phones nowadays, even which are like 6 inches average, 5.5 inches to 6 inches, you have 1080p on those, and you have 400 pixels per inch pixel density on a small screen, mobile screen, and you can clearly see it makes a big difference. When you have a 720p screen on that size, you can clearly tell with text, maybe not as much with games, some games, but when the game uses a lot of text inside of the game, then you can definitely tell. You can definitely tell. No way the person who made that video is serious. The screen isn't as big as your average PC monitor, so the resolution makes sense. Again, the point about phones, mobile phones, most phones nowadays use 1080p, even very cheap mobile phone displays use 1080p 120 Hz. That's not a high-end feature anymore. I'm going to assume they mean that the desktop mode is difficult. Yeah, this is what I meant. Yeah, desktop mode, this is correct. And in my opinion, KDE Plasma is more or less as simple as Windows desktop environment. This is not true. I am a Linux user and use KDE Plasma as my daily, I don't know what this acronym means, so it might be harder for other people, but I don't really see how. Well, the reason why is because you have to install all this stuff like dependencies and packages and things like that make it very difficult. Like if you're trying to install a driver, it's not simple as downloading an installer, exe. A lot of the time you have to get these dependencies and these packages, sudo, you have to like use these commands like sudo apt-get and whatever else. I don't know why it's so confusing, but yeah, it's terrible. And obviously this guy's a Linux user, he's used to it, so that's why he doesn't find it hard. Number 3, what was point number 3? Heavy. It's just not. Heavier than a Switch, sure, but not heavy. Well, it's heavy within the realm of a handheld device, right? Compared to like a mobile phone, it's definitely heavier. Mobile phones nowadays, 200 grams is on the heavy side for a mobile phone. And you can connect you can attach those Joy-Cons, or what are they called? Controller attachments you can buy for your phone, and it won't add up to more than 600 grams. Definitely, it'll be like 300 grams, 350 grams with those controller attachments on your phone. So definitely within its own class, it is a heavy device. You can't even dispute that. It's a heavy device. I think it's 660 grams, right? Something like that. But it's a heavy device. There's no denying that. Anyone who knows died. So yeah, that was just going through some of these Reddit comments. Kind of funny. I always find this community not to be a very neutral community. They're very biased when it comes to Steam Deck. I think I posted something once on this forum, right? It was a very simple question. I asked something like, how does the Steam Deck fan noise compare with ROG Ally? Steam Deck OLED fan noise. And instead of someone answering me, instead of the community being helpful, the moderators of this community just went and deleted it. It's crazy. The mods here are really biased as well. So yeah, you can tell these people are crazy. Steam Deck users, the Steam Deck fanboys are really insane and kind of like a cult. Very cult-like behavior. And something amazing. I only have 100 subscribers, right? And this video got 2.5k views. I'm guessing it's because of the Reddit thread. And these Steam Deck people are really crazy. It's nice to see so much engagement with the video. It had 15 likes, right, and 204 dislikes, which is crazy. It's more engagement than I've ever seen. It's such a huge amount of engagement, which I like it. I like that there's more engagement. But it just goes to show these people are crazy. The Steam Deck community, they really want to sell you on the device. They really get angry when any criticism is made of the device. It's pretty funny, pretty hilarious. And look at this, 63 comments. It's crazy. Look at that. 63. So let's go to the oldest. It's your opinion, and that's understandable, but a lot of this is borderline misinformation. Linux requires work to take advantage of, yes, but it is not a terrible OS. The Steam Deck is capable of many great things because of Linux. And while it has issues, the Windows handhelds have loads of issues too. It's also not as bulky and silly as in public as you think. That's literally just your hot take. Steam does not have an update every single time. That is ludicrous. Maybe every single time is a bit of an exaggeration. but it definitely does update a lot. Like let's try loading it now. Actually, I'll load up Steam. Let's see if it gives me an update. And it takes a while to load up as well. That's something that does annoy me as well. Okay, so you can see here my game is updating. This is quite annoying as well because you can't immediately get into your game. Sometimes you do have these updates like quite regularly. Apparently that's a feature of Steam. I wasn't aware of this, but something to do with a security feature or something like that, verification. But yeah, that time it did not update. But there are times when Steam seems to update a lot more often than other games, I would say. And I just don't like having it open in the background because it takes up quite a lot of resources. So Linux requires work to take advantage of, but it is not a terrible OS. I think the fact that it does take work proves that it's not a good consumer end user OS, because obviously the point of an operating system is you shouldn't need to work to make it work for you. It should just be working out of the box, right? It should just work out of the box. The Steam Deck is capable of many great things because of Linux, and while it has its issues, the Windows handhelds have loads of issues too. Yeah, I understand why Valve went with Linux. It's because they kind of want to save on the Windows licensing fee, and probably they want to get away from Windows. So they have more control over the operating system, I would imagine. But that does make the device very, very user unfriendly in the desktop environment. It is a very bulky device, I would say, and you will look kind of weird in public. But yeah, maybe you're right about this point. It does not have an update every single time. We get it. It's not for you, but my best friend who was using an Xbox One S before, a console gamer, has absolutely no problem being a PC gamer via using a Steam Deck with Linux. Because just stay in the gaming mode, silly, then it's literally just gaming PC console. Perfect use case for friends if you want to play PC only games, but don't have a PC nor space for one. Well, this guy, it's kind of hard to understand what he's saying, but he's saying his friend was a console gamer and he moved to the Steam Deck. And he's fine because he doesn't go into the desktop environment, he just uses the gaming mode, the normal Steam mode. But I've highlighted the problem with that, which is you can't play many games. A lot of games do not work, and a lot of games are not on Steam, like a lot of Epic games, and a lot of games are just cheaper on other platforms, like on Steam, quite expensive. But like Cyberpunk 2077, I found was cheaper on GOG. There are other games as well that are just cheaper on other platforms, other storefronts. What a re? I don't know what this means. I guess this is kind of millennial speak. Not really speaking my language here. I respectfully disagree. The Steam Deck is by no means the best thing ever. But the video just seems like you want to hate on the system, and your points don't really land on anything. The system's capabilities are well worth the base price point, and the higher tiers are still reasonable. I would say the base price point for the Steam Deck OLED is £480. You can't take into account the Steam Deck LCD because it's a different model altogether, and that has its own disadvantages, many more, even more than the Steam Deck OLED. That one sucks even worse. But the Steam Deck OLED starts at £480, which I think is $550, something like that. And the higher tiers are still reasonable. I would say no, because it's a toy. It's basically a toy. You're spending that much money on a toy, and it's not worthwhile. The resolution at the screen size is perfectly adequate. The pixel density of 1280 by 800 resolution is over 200 ppi, on the 7-inch screen size, 188 if 8-inch, which is still a higher pixel density than a 27-inch monitor, 4K monitor, 165 ppi. Well, obviously, but this is not relevant because you sit further away from a 27-inch monitor than you do from a Steam Deck, right? You might hold a Steam Deck at arm's length, or you might hold it quite a bit closer. And if you go closer, then you're going to notice the lack of clarity, especially with text, and especially with OLED panels, because there is a known issue with the Steam Deck OLED, which it has color, I can't remember what it's called, but the OLED panel has text fringing issue. You can Google this, and it's a real issue. I haven't made this up. And basically, it's worse on some panels than on others. I think there's two different kind of Steam Deck OLED panels. One is the BOE panel, which you get with the limited edition one, and one is the Samsung panel. And the Samsung one, which is on most of them, the regular Steam Deck OLEDs, that OLED panel is worse. It has worse text fringing issues, which reduces the clarity. The screen is sharp and text is legible if small. That problem is more due to the game not scaling text to the resolution. This is also true. There is a problem with games, and most games these days run optimally at 1080p or higher. They need to be at 1080p to fit a lot of the text information, otherwise they do not look optimized for that. So even with a 4K monitor, pixel density isn't everything, because you can simply enlarge the text, and that gives you the illusion of sharper, clearer text when you enlarge the text. But when you go really small on the text, that's when you really notice the lack of clarity. And it's really about how much information you can fit on a screen. A 27-inch 4K monitor, you're going to be able to fit a lot more information in the same area, a lot more points, pixel points, right? A lot more pixels, which are data points, to give you the information of text. Like a very small piece of text you might not even notice on the Steam Deck, you'll easily notice on the 4K monitor, because it has enough pixels to render that text, that information, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm making sense here. Graphics setting and anti-aliasing can make the image look bad in games, but the Steam Deck isn't a high-end gaming PC. It's not as good as other high-res panels on handhelds, but it doesn't really need to be, especially at the system's base price point. I disagree, especially when you consider mobile phones. Very budget mobile phones today have 1080p displays at 5 or 6 inches, have a much higher pixel density of about 400, 300. The iPhone Retina, the original Retina display, had a pixel density of 326 ppi, which is kind of the optimal resolution. The optimal pixel density, which is why I love the ROG Ally. It has basically the same Retina level of clarity as my iPhone. It has 320 pixels per inch, around that much. So 1080p at 7 inches is a great size, a great resolution, because of the clarity increases so much. The size of the device isn't really much bigger than what people lug around these days either. I think if you compare it to mobile, it's obviously bigger than a mobile, right? And you can play games on your mobile. So before someone says, oh, you can't compare it to a mobile because it's a completely different device, but you can. When you consider a mobile, you can actually play quite high-end games nowadays, even something like Death Stranding on iPhone, Resident Evil 4 on iPhone you can play. So Steam Deck is quite a bit bigger, and the Nintendo Switch Lite is quite a bit smaller. I would say that's kind of a more ideal size for a handheld Nintendo Switch Lite. ROG Ally is a similar footprint, yeah, but it's a bit less thick, less wide. Most importantly, it's less wide, which means, like, if you're on a train or a bus seat, you're not intruding on the person next to you, right? Because you're not having to hold the device so far apart with your hands so far apart. Nintendo Switch is smaller overall, but not exactly small either. Yeah, I would say the Nintendo Switch Lite is the kind of more ideal, optimal size. Linux in general is not a terrible OS, and SteamOS is one of the easy to use ones like Mint. I've heard this claim so many times. Linux fans are also a bit crazy because they really try to sell you on Linux. And yeah, I've experienced this before as well. I found that even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was using Linux, people were trying to say the same thing then. They were trying to say, oh, it's really improved so much, it's so much more user-friendly, but it never is. It's not user-friendly when you try to do anything like that is actually outside of the most basic things. When you try to install a driver, you have to enter commands and things like sudo, apt-get, things like that. Just nonsense, which is nonsense to me. It will not make sense to a general basic user. There's absolutely no need to do anything in the desktop environment on the Steam Deck unless you're trying to put other programs for desktop use or emulators. So this is quite an important point. I mean, unless you're just buying it as a toy, then if you're spending £500, $550 on a device, which is the price of the OLED, the base OLED Steam Deck, then you're going to want to have more functionality from it than just games. Otherwise, it's just a toy, right? So yeah, OpenOffice and LibreOffice, you're going to want to install them. You're going to want to install emulators like Yuzu, which many are just installed by Flatpaks in Discover, which is basically like installing through an app store. Okay, but not everything is through Flatpaks. Like there are some things that you're not going to be able to find in Flatpaks, and even Flatpaks, it's something that is going to be quite daunting to a basic user, even if it is quite a bit simpler than entering commands. Yeah. So there's a lot of comments. I'm going to go through them. I'm going to go through them at some point, maybe in the next video. I'm going to go through the rest of these comments. Some of them are quite interesting, but most of them are just obsessive Linux Steam Deck fanboys who are basically a cult, you know. And this video has 200 dislikes. It's amazing how many dislikes this video has. I'm actually really happy because it shows a lot of engagement with the video, which means the video is getting out there, and people are really annoyed about it because they have to have their opinions challenged. They can't just pretend the device is perfect. It's not perfect, and it has very big flaws, and it's not as great as people are trying to make out. Yeah. Make sure you stay unbiased and critical and impartial, and always question what people are trying to sell you on YouTube. Question even me. You can question, am I trying to sell you something? Maybe you can say I'm trying to sell you the ROG Ally. I would say no, I'm not associated with ASUS. I'm not a shill. I would say make up your own mind about what you want to buy, but do not listen to people who never mention the flaws of a product or try to downplay the flaws of a product. Those are the people you want to ignore. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video.